Hi guys, Bob Robinson here,
And Rick Robinson here.
and we're the
Rick
Robinson Twins. We are in Death Valley National Park,
At Badwater Basin.
and Rick met me here with his canoe, which is right over there. Thanks to a hurricane in August and several wet winter storms, Badwater Basin is kind of a small part like it was in the Pleistocene Era when there was a Lake Manly here. And there are a number of people who have already put in their watercraft. We're seeing people who have already done their paddling and have taken off, and now
It's our turn.
it's our turn. So come on along on this little adventure paddling Lake Manly in Death Valley National
Paddling
Park.
a canoe below sea level.
And below sea level, as you can see.
Which is a rare thing for anyone to do. So we're below sea level right now. We'll show you the sea level sign later. But right now we're going to be paddling below sea level.
Wading into Lake Manly, Badwater Basin. A very rare experience. So the edge of the water is right up to the boardwalk at Badwater Basin, and here's Rick's canoe. We're about to start the slog out that way. You can see people are out a long way, and it's barely even up to their calves. We might have a long way to go. There's Bob leading the canoe out in the water. I don't think it's deep enough for us to actually get in yet, so we'll have to get a little bit deeper before we can sit in it. Well, that's how far we've come so far, a quarter of a mile or kilometer. So the lake is very extensive but not deep. The Badwater Basin across that alluvial fan is about 6 miles. So the lake itself is almost 6 miles across, Lake Manly. So once we get into a little bit deeper, we can start paddling. Stand-up paddle boarders. How did I leave Rick so far behind? Jeez. I'm already getting salt encrusted. Shall we try it?
About halfway up the calf.
All right, so it's almost halfway up the calf. Boy, have I got a lot of salt on me. Rick says we should go ahead and try this, see if we can start paddling. Oh, you get in first and see if it bottoms out.
Not that we really need this.
It keeps it out of the way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Rick's gonna get in and see if we can start paddling, see if we don't bottom out here. You still seem to be floating.
Thanks. The guy who was hiking out stopped to take a picture of you with the canoe.
Uh-huh.
So I started talking to you a little bit. That's another reason why I'm so far behind you. Oh, shit, I can't get the paddle out. It's stuck on.
Okay, Rick's trying to get my paddle out, but it's stuck. There we go. There we go. It unlatched. All right. Rick's in the canoe. Okay, Rick's in the canoe and we're not bottoming out, so we'll try if I can get in. See if this works. Yeah, I'm just gonna throw that behind.
Take this off.
And let's see if I can get in. We are floating. All right. We're floating. I think. Are we floating?
I think so. I'm just taking my PFD off.
All right.
Ready?
Let's paddle up and see if we're on. Huh? We are floating.
We're moving.
Okay. All right.
So here we are, paddling across Lake Manly, below sea level, with just maybe a foot and a half at best, maybe even just a foot of depth here. But we are floating, and it's enough to keep us afloat, and the paddles not to hit bottom. Although we could if we wanted to. And ahead of us is Telescope Peak and Inundated Mountains, and other paddlers. Okay, you can see that this water is saturated with salt, so you can actually see little bits of crystals on the surface. I don't think those are bubbles. Those are salt crystals. Even though they look kind of like bubbles, those are salt crystals. So we're on Lake Manly in Death Valley, Badwater Basin, below sea level, with the Panamint Mountains ahead of us, and the highest part is Telescope Peak, highest peak in Death Valley National Park, and it's capped in snow. So we're seeing a reflection of Telescope Peak in the Panamint Range here in Lake Manly. Kind of aimed north at this point, but Rick's going to take some pictures. Right, Rick? Say again? You're going to take some pictures. Yeah, I'm with the camera to try to avoid getting salt all over it. Now than it was before. So we're out here in the middle of Lake Manly, and we're seeing the reflection of Telescope Peak and the ridge that leads up to it in the Panamints, reflected in Lake Manly. And here's some fellow watercrafters out here on Lake Manly with us. Stand-up paddleboards. And here's looking back at the reflections of these mountains in the water. Amargosa Range. Okay, according to Rick's Run Keeper, we just heard that we've gone how far? 4 kilometers. 4.33 kilometers. Across Lake Manly. There's Badwater way back there. Parking area where we started. And there's Hanapa Canyon and Telescope Peak up ahead. You can see its reflection in the water. For some reason the water's getting shallower here, and we were expecting it would get deeper as we traveled west. But yeah, right now the paddle's touching the bottom here. Our paddles are, well, they always touch the bottom, but right now there's only about that much depth, which is not a whole lot. So we might have half of what we had at our deepest point. So we might be turning around now, because if it gets shallower as we go, then we don't want to wind up running aground. So even though we could get out and push. Even though we could get out and push, right? Or wade, like how we started this. But yeah, so we're almost halfway across Badwater Basin, now filled with this, Lake Manly. So it's been an interesting experience. We're below sea level. Well, below sea level and on what used to be salt flats, but is now a lake that's maybe 2 feet at the deepest, but just enough for us to float on.
Time 1 hour 20 minutes 11 seconds. Distance 4.62 kilometers. Velocity 17 minutes 21 seconds.
All right, so we'll go till we reach about 5 and then head back.
Okay,
Which
so
is about 3 miles.
So there's the view to the north. There's the view to the south.
Where the Amargosa River comes in the first place.
And there's a jet fighter going overhead up there.
Oh, there it is.
They like to buzz Death Valley and Panamint Valley the next valley over. So we never have had much depth on this, but right now we're seeing the bottom
Pretty easily.
under the canoe. But at this point we're still floating. It's still we're still not running aground exactly, but Our paddles hit the bottom pretty regularly at this point. There we go. Paddle blade
Getting shallower. So I think we'll turn around here in a little bit.
Alright, so we're at about halfway across Badwater Basin, Lake Manly in its current form. So we're heading back to Badwater Basin that way, and we can see the Panamint Range and Telescope Peak are now behind us, and the sun is going in that direction.
Look at how salt encrusted
And so,
the water bottle is.
Here's the salt. We get salt everywhere. So on our way back to the truck. All right, we are touching bottom at this point. Heading back, but we're still floating enough. Heading back to Badwater Basin, parking area. Oh, there. So we've turned around, and Badwater, the parking area for Badwater Basin, is just up ahead. Have a ways to go still, I guess. But one thing we're noticing is all the stand-up paddle boarders and other kayakers and stuff that were out here before. We don't see anybody. It's like we have the whole lake to ourselves. So maybe they're anticipating that conditions wouldn't be as good in the afternoon, so they tried to get it all done by now. But
Activity resumed.
here we are on Lake Manly, apparently the only watercraft out here. And there's just barely the hint of a breeze right now. So everything's nice and calm. Not a cloud in the sky. Nice weather for paddling in, especially on a lake that is normally not here. Not even in any given year would it appear. It's just the conditions are right this particular year.
Time 2 hours, 20 minutes, 18 seconds. Distance 8.56 kilometers. Average
Okay.
speed 16 minutes, 23 seconds.
All right, there's Badwater up there. Approaching the Badwater Basin parking area and our exit.
Activity resumed.
When we look at the salt crystals floating away.
What?
When we look at the salt crystals floating on top of this saturated solution.
Run aground, so we have to get out and tow the vehicle back to its.
So look what the salt did to my water bottle and to Rick's canoe. Salt everywhere because we were paddling through saturated waters. You can see the water line, which represents actually the salt line too. Lots of salt. These satellite images show Death Valley, specifically around the Badwater Basin area. Our fitness app shows the route that we took over Lake Manly during this paddling adventure. So thanks for joining us on this canoe trip across Lake Manly in Death Valley National Park, Badwater Basin, lowest point in North America. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. And hit that bell if you want notifications when our next one comes out. What he said.